began venting his frustrations on me, despite having already eaten dinner and claiming he didn't need it. His suit and bag lay scattered on the floor, a clear sign of his agitation. Reluctantly, I started cleaning up after him. As I picked up his suit jacket, a piece of paper fell out. It was a completed divorce form, signed by Shawn. Shocked and trembling, I realized that Shawn was considering divorcing me. My name is Michelle, a 52-year-old housewife married to Shawn, who is 3 years older than me. We've been together for over 2 decades. My naturally shy nature has often made me an easy target for others to take advantage of. This tendency to avoid conflict and keep my opinions to myself stemmed from past experiences, like losing belongings without standing up for myself. However, things changed when I started working. The company culture emphasized teamwork and communication, which forced me to interact with my colleagues. Surprisingly, they were supportive, and I learned to express myself. Shawn, who was initially my supervisor and later became my husband, played a significant role in this transformation. He encouraged me to voice my opinions and supported my growth. Shawn was not only skilled at his job, but also had a pleasant personality that was admired by both clients and coworkers, making him popular among female employees. However, I only viewed him as my boss and never harbored any romantic feelings towards him, despite his popularity. Then, our relationship took an unexpected turn during the company's year-end party. I accidentally got drunk due to nerves, and while my colleagues were concerned, Shawn offered to take me home. I felt guilty for inconveniencing him, assuming he preferred to stay and socialize with the rest of the staff as the boss. But when I apologized, Shawn said something unexpected. He expressed that he didn't mind being inconvenienced by someone important to him, and he reassured me not to worry about it. I was taken aback by Shawn's words, and as I tried to process them, he suddenly confessed his romantic feelings for me, saying he liked me and wanted to date me. It was a shock, but I found myself feeling happy about his confession. I asked for some time to think it over, but gradually, I began to see Shawn in a different light. Our feelings for each other grew, and we started dating. 6 months into our relationship, Shawn proposed, and we got married. At the time, it was common for married female employees to resign, so I left my job to become a full-time housewife. After we married, we soon welcomed our daughter into the world, and I dedicated myself to managing household tasks and raising her while supporting my husband Shawn. I put a lot of effort into taking care of our home and nurturing our daughter, and I took pride in my parenting abilities. However, after more than 20 years of marriage, I began to notice a significant change in Shawn's attitude towards me. It seemed like he no longer saw me as his wife, especially evident in his sighs and constant irritability whenever he came home from work. His gaze towards me became harsher, and his criticisms grew increasingly hurtful. He would often comment on my appearance, telling me to stop going without makeup and to dress better, even comparing me unfavorably to a maid. Despite trying to save money, as our daughter had recently moved out and found a job, Shawn reduced the amount of money he gave me for household expenses. Consequently, I couldn't even afford to visit a hairdresser and had to resort to cutting my own hair. The decrease in our living expenses was partly due to Shawn's increased business trips, which seemed to involve a lot of drinking and additional expenses. Despite my concerns about this sudden increase in trips, Shawn justified it by saying he was mentoring his subordinates and had a responsibility to accompany them. In the early days of our relationship, Shawn's business trips were rare and mostly for romantic getaways, with generous allowances provided by his company. However, now these trips occurred every 2 weeks, and the allowances were considerably less. When I questioned him about this change, Shawn explained that he was accompanying his subordinates on their trips as their mentor. At this point, Shawn had been promoted to sales director, so it seemed reasonable that he would be taking care of his subordinates. However, something he said while drunk one night stuck in my mind. He mentioned how the company had many young and attractive girls, unlike me, and that it was a real feast for the eyes. I felt mocked and degraded by his comparison, especially considering I was over 50 years old. It was unfair to compare me to the younger women at his workplace. I couldn't shake off the suspicion that Shawn's frequent business trips might involve accompanying young female employees. If that were the case, it would mean that my living expenses were being sacrificed for his escapades with these girls. I couldn't forgive such behavior, even if I wasn't sure if he was having an affair. It felt unjust to have endured so much only to be treated this way. Shawn's overnight business trips continued to increase, happening almost every week. All I could do was silently see him off, as he always claimed it was for work, leaving me no room to argue. When he returned, he often mentioned the same woman's name, comparing her beauty unfavorably to mine. He made hurtful remarks about my appearance, especially when he was drunk, showing his disdain for me. Despite Shawn's flaws, he seemed oblivious to them. He had gained weight over the years, and his personal hygiene had declined, especially in the summer when he sweated profusely. His hair had also started thinning, yet he had the audacity to criticize me while ignoring his own shortcomings. When I suggested increasing my living expenses so I could pay more attention to my appearance, Shawn dismissed it, saying it would be a waste of money. However, when he wasn't satisfied with the meals I prepared, he lashed out, blaming me for not being able to do even the simplest household chores properly. It felt like a double standard, and I couldn't help but feel frustrated and resentful. I was really upset after Shawn took control of my bank card. He claimed I was wasting the money I've earned, so he decided he would manage my salary. It left me speechless. Despite my attempts to reason with him, he wouldn't budge. Shawn's contribution to our household income was minimal, which is why I had started working part-time. Then, out of the blue, he announced he'd be going on a solo business trip for about 6 months. I thought, fine, at least he won't be at home. But then he dropped another bombshell. We needed to cut our living expenses even more while he was away. I couldn't believe it. We were already struggling to make ends meet. There was barely anything left over each month, and sometimes I had to dip into my savings. When I protested and asked for my bank card back, Shawn exploded into anger, calling me greedy and refusing to return it. I felt lost and powerless. A few days later, Shawn left for his assignment, and I reached my breaking point. I couldn't continue like this. So I sought advice from my workplace, and they suggested opening a new account and having my salary deposited there. With online banking, I could manage everything easily. I followed their advice immediately, and soon enough, my salary was being deposited into my new account. Thanks to this, I could finally take control of my finances and lead a proper life again. Life continued for about 2 or 3 months after I took control of my finances. Then, I received a call from Shawn, questioning why there hadn't been any salary deposited. Suspicious, I told him I had quit my part-time job and got fired. He responded with disdain and hung up. It felt like he was planning to use my salary without my permission, so I felt relieved that I had changed my account. Feeling uneasy about Shawn's actions, I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate. About a month later, they uncovered a shocking truth. With this revelation, I made up my mind to separate from Shawn and began preparing for a divorce. Time passed quickly, and the day Shawn was supposed to return from his assignment arrived. When he walked in the door that evening, he seemed unusually lively at first. However, his mood soared as soon as he saw me, and he began taking out his frustrations on me. Despite my inner fury, I maintained a calm facade and welcomed him back. I knew it wasn't the right time for revenge yet. Shawn grumpily headed to the bath, leaving his belongings scattered on the floor. As I picked up after him, a piece of paper fell out of his suit jacket. A completed divorce form with Shawn's signature. My hands trembled as I realized he had been considering divorcing me. Overjoyed at the opportunity, I decided to submit the form right away. Shawn didn't notice as he returned to bed exhausted, snoring loudly. Meanwhile, I wasted no time. I packed my belongings and left the house immediately, canceling my cell phone plan and switching to a new one to avoid Shawn's attempts to contact me. I headed straight to a lawyer's office. Shawn bombarded me with emails, likely realizing I was missing, but I ignored them. I stayed in a hotel that night and visited a real estate agency the next day to find a new place to live. I had already chosen some promising apartments in advance, so I quickly settled on one and began making preparations. Later, I reached out to a colleague of Shawn's from his workplace, who had been there for over 20 years. She responded promptly, and I shared the shocking news of Shawn's affair with a subordinate named Nicole, along with his deceit about taking sick leave to care for me. She reported it to the company, leading to a major investigation. As a result, Shawn and Nicole faced consequences for their actions, and Shawn was ultimately fired. Despite Shawn's attempts to contact me, including blaming me for his troubles and begging for a chance to talk, I ignored them all. Through a lawyer, I claimed compensation and got back my bank card, which he had used without permission. Shawn's life took a sharp downturn from being a well-off man with a respectable position to an unemployed middle-aged man overnight. His affair partner left him, and he even blamed me for that. But I paid no heed to his words. Recently, I became a full-time employee at the company where I had previously worked part-time. I'm focusing on my career, staying connected with my daughter, and enjoying meals out together. From now on, I plan to savor my single life to the fullest, both at work and in my personal life.